at LSU, Missouri yesterday. The big news was the announcement that T-Bob and I were anticipating yesterday morning in between 7 and 9, and then it officially came at 9 o'clock from the league office where Greg Sankey talked about working with both schools in LSU and Missouri, and that this had been approved and it had been agreed upon on both sides that this game to take place in Missouri. So that'll happen at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. First and foremost, I mean, like, compliments to both sides on how easy this was to get done. I mean, like, shows you a couple of years back on just, like, what the hell was going on between LSU and Florida when they were trying to move the game from Gainesville to Baton Rouge, and everything just kind of went down between both athletic departments. And it was obvious that Greg Sankey had gotten pushed around a little bit by Jeremy Fowler, the Florida athletic director, and to see Missouri and LSU get this deal done as seamless as it seemed to the public. First off, compliments to both sides and the league office for just making a decision, making the announcement, and getting it done. So now the game's going to take place Saturday morning, 11 o'clock. T, what are you looking for?
Okay, so yeah, what I want to do with this segment, I want to look at the main areas of improvement that we want to see out of LSU, because even though it's only 2 games, I do think we have a couple statistical trends, Jordy, that we can engage with here. And then if you in the chat, or you or whoever else in this room, if you all want to give me your players that you're most looking forward to watching on Saturday, we'll dive into that as well. Okay, first and foremost, I try to identify some of the ways that you beat great teams, right? And when you're looking at some of the core football, I mean, obviously stuff like the turnover battle, that, I think at this point that kind of speaks for itself, right? But I think about third down conversion rate. I think about cutting down on mistakes. I think about red zone touchdown rate, right? Something that with LSU was unbelievable at last year that you may not have always realized. So I want to start with the first of those. I think if even though LSU improved upon so much offensively week 1 to week 2 and stuff that we directly critiqued, unfortunately, one area in which they did not improve was on third down.
Yeah.
And this is on the players. This is not on the coaches, because the coaches actually did a much better job of calling plays on first and second down to put you into good third down spots. You had a 3rd and 6 average last game. If you're existing in the 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 5 range, that's great. That's where you want to be. That translates, or it should at least, to like a 50% conversion rate. Unfortunately, that is not the case for LSU right now. They are converting on just 31% of their third downs. There has never been a great team that wasn't excellent on third down. And you're not going to be able to beat the best teams on this schedule, the Florida and Bama on this schedule, if you don't get better on third down. I mean, just look at last year's Bama game, right? Every time was a third and long. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire gave you that big play, and it felt that much more backbreaking. Think about 3rd and 17 at Texas. Obviously, those are the high watermarks. But then just look at the league this year and look at how the best teams are converting. Sure enough, you look up the rankings, Alabama's converting on 58% of their third downs. Florida's converting on 52% of your third downs. LSU, on the other hand, is sandwiched between South Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Now, Tennessee might be okay, but you are the company you keep. I don't want to ever be sandwiched between Sam Pittman and Will Muschamp in multiple ways. I don't want that ever to happen to me. And unfortunately, that's where LSU is right now. That's my first area of improvement. I got a couple others. You want me to keep rolling? Do you have any? Okay. Second one, we talked about it yesterday. Be real quick here. Cut down the drops. I mean, that's super easy. Nothing scheme-wise. That's physical. Right now, you're on pace to double last year's drops, despite the fact that you're playing 5 less games. 5 drops week 1, 3 drops week 2. See that number down again, hopefully 1, 2. That'd be a passing grade. Another big stat here that you need to improve upon, red zone touchdown rate. And look, all these numbers are sampled with a bit of small sample size bias, so don't be too married to these things, but you are seeing some trends emerge. And in 7 trips to the red zone right now, LSU has scored touchdowns on just 3 of those 7 trips. That's a 42% rate. This is something to highlight for a couple of reasons. First off, this is mainly where Joe Brady made his money last year, was putting together red zone play calls, red zone game plans, and LSU was incredible last season. They were first in the SEC. They scored touchdowns 78.6% of the time last season. Right now, as we said, you're 10th in the SEC at just 42%. If you can hit 70%, I mean, 78 is just God mode absurd. If you can hit 70%, that's elite. That'll put you among the best in the conference or the best in the country. If you want to accomplish your goals, I believe you at least need to be hitting 60%. At least. So that's definitely an area that I want to see LSU improve upon. On the flip side, on the other hand, defensively, LSU's actually been great in this department. Through 2 games, opponents have made it inside the 27 times, come away with touchdowns just twice. You keep that going, you're going to set yourself up for a lot of success. And if we're talking about the defenses, those first 2 were offensively based. I mean, look, it's going to be tough to draw too much away from the defense. I think what I want to see out of them isn't anything so specific like the statistical categories that I just named for the LSU offense. I just want to see them continue to build upon the performance of last week. Like even with that terrible first game, because I think it was much more coaching based and some weird personnel based. Like I still think that this defense could be really good. How could it not with players like Jabril Cox, Jacoby Stevens, Derek Stingley? I mean, your biggest question mark was the defensive end position, and now all of a sudden that feels like a strength when you look at Ali Gay and B.J. Ujulari and Andre Anthony. Yeah, exactly, right? And so the defense can still be excellent. I want to see him be a little more stout against the run this week. Obviously, the first half against Vandy, that's probably the one negative mark for really the entire night for that group. But yeah, just gain some more confidence going into that Florida game so you feel like you can stop the Florida Gators. So those are the main areas that I am looking at in terms of the overall team this Saturday.
And I think that covers a lot of the areas in which you want to see improvement from the team as a whole. When you look at individual players, I go right to Glenn Logan this week. I think this is a huge opportunity for Logan to step in against an inferior opponent and get his feet underneath him before you take off to Gainesville, and you're going to have that defensive line rotation shored up. Not that it's going to be what it's going to look like in late November or early November, but you've got to get an idea of what it's going to be and what it's going to handle, or how you're going to handle that rotation with Jaquelin Roy, with Joe Evans, with Glenn Logan, with all those guys, Apu Ike in the inside, on how that rotation is going to function. And then from a player standpoint, I'm looking at the number 2 wide receiver. Because,
who is it, right?
Exactly. I think everybody had settled on Racey McMath, and McMath has made a couple of plays each game here through the first start of the season.
McMath has had something really weird where every time he has a really good play lined up, something goes awry, right? The arm gets hit on what looks like it would have been a 40-yard touchdown. Or last week when Myles threw that bad pick, I believe that was McMath that was wide open for what looked like it was going to be like a 20-yard gain.
Is it Jeriah Jenkins? Is it Jontre Kirkland?
Yeah.
Who is it going to be? I think at some point that is going to have to emerge behind Terrace Marshall, and is it Arik Gilbert? Who's going to be the guy?
Arik Gilbert is receiver 2, I believe. Even though him and Dre Jenkins have very similar numbers right now, I think they have almost the same amount of catches. Dre has more yards. But if we're talking just the wide receiver position, I still think McMath is actually in the top 3. Even though you would be like the numbers don't support it at this point. I don't know if it's Jenkins or Kirkland who is next up after that.
But the real dude I'm looking at this week who I want to start to make plays and really start to stand out is 18 on defense, Damone Clark. I really want him to start to push through and become and emerge as a leader, not only from his voice and his actions off the field, but I want him to start making play. I want him to become a playmaker, man, in the middle of that defense. And I know that maybe the offensives that they faced have maybe – phased him out a little bit, or maybe taken him out of a couple of plays because of the quick throwing styles that they played against. But I think it's time for 18 and Damone Clark to really push ahead here and step out front. Yeah, he's a click and a half off, step and a half off.
Looks like he's thinking a little too much out there right now, over pursuing at times. Looks young, to be quite frank. But I mean that's why having this game and not rescheduling it to like the shared bye week or something was so important, because this team needs these growth opportunities. I would throw one more guy in there, Charles Turner. Yeah. Obviously, if Ed Ingram can't go, Charles Turner sounds like he's going to go, which means that he is your interior swing guy because he's also your backup center. He will have to play this year. That is just a guarantee. There's no way around that, even beyond just this Saturday. And so that'll give us an idea of how comfortable we should be. Like, you're now way more comfortable in left tackle than you were previously. And then finally, I just want to see what the running back rotation looks like. And like for the breakout guys last week, for Kirkland and Emery, Is that going to be the exception? Is that going to be the rule? Let's see how they follow up with the Missouri Tigers.
Your food questions next.